Well, 2025 winter meetings are officially underway in Orlando, Florida, and the St. Louis Cardinals are actually the center of it, believe it or not, with the MLB draft lottery this week, Rule 5 draft, and then obviously trades and free agency. Cardinals expect to be very active, at least on the first three fronts, but they aren't going to sit out free agency either. And we'll talk a little bit about what their checklist looks like and what kind of arms they'll be targeting there. News updates and some more thoughts on Brendan Donovan's market as it's taking shape, and some potential bats that might hit the market now that could influence what teams are interested in Donovan now that there's some other bats available. Nolan Arenado updates, other updates on this episode of Deal on the Cards. All right, welcome back into Deal on the Cards. Josh, Andrew, and Sandy, as always, St. Louis Cardinals podcast. If you're joining us for the first time, we'd love if you hit that subscribe button. If you like the video, it helps the channel out a ton as well. Comment down below your thoughts as we go through the stream. We're presented by 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles. We'll tell you more about them later, but we always really appreciate their partnership. And yeah, we just want to jump into some winter meetings talks. So the meeting started today. Not a whole lot of action going down so far. Obviously, we saw Zach Gallen go to wait, never mind. Sorry, Bob Nightingale. Though it was close. It could happen, but that's one for everyone on Twitter right there. But
jumps the gun.
Yeah. Anyways, never mind. I'm not going to go there. So there is some action that's expected to happen. Honestly, I think this could be one of the crazier, busier winter meetings we've had in a long time. A couple of MLB executives have talked about how pretty much every team in baseball is wanting to add. Speaking of Bob Nightingale, he had that in his piece today. Then he said, except for the St. Louis Cardinals, who are like very much in sell mode, and it made it very clear that they're looking to maximize. In the words of Derek Gould, which I think is a really good way to look at this week, and especially in context of the Sonny Gray trade from earlier this offseason, the Cardinals are looking to maximize returns on anything they can do this offseason. Obviously, and we'll talk about it a little bit, they are looking to add in free agency, so it's not like last offseason where they're literally not going to add anything to the roster until spring training. But will that happen this week? Who knows? Probably take a unique deal for that type of thing to happen. But what is expected to happen, or at least really start to heat up, is the Brendan Donovan sweepstakes. We'll get into that. Nolan Arenado, Will Contreras, JoJo Romero, updates on Lars Nootbaar, all of that. But on the Donovan front, plenty of teams are interested in acquiring Brendan Donovan. We've talked about this before, right? Upwards of 20 to 22 teams are interested. Of note that have been confirmed, there's the Houston Astros, Los Angeles Dodgers, New York Yankees, Cleveland Guardians, Seattle Mariners are all teams that have checked in on Donovan and shown interest. The Kansas City Royals continue to have interest in him as well. And per Derek Gould's reporting from this morning, the Cardinals do have interest in lefty Noah Cameron. So yikes, please don't be a Brendan Donovan deal, for being honest here. But as that market starts to heat up a little bit, though, there is the other new dynamic that I think we kind of knew potentially is at play, but now has been confirmed to truly be influencing what potentially the Cardinals could do here. And that's the emergence of Ketel Marte and Brandon Lau as trade candidates. Gould talked about today, there are overlaps in groups of teams that are interested in Lau, Ketel Marte, and Brendan Donovan. So rather than just being this one prize out there, which I still think Brendan Donovan might be the biggest prize. I mean, Ketel Marte is obviously a better player, but comes with a pretty hefty contract and some weird issues going around with that. So I think he'll get a haul. Brandon Lau, again, great player. He can get something too, but it does add things to the market. So it's not just 22 teams all after Brendan Donovan. It's 20-ish teams, and most of them are after all of them are after Donovan, but some are also after Lau or Marte, things like that. Sandy, when you hear two fronts, one, Brandon Lau, Ketel Marte being thrown into the mix, does that at all influence what you think the Cardinals could be getting back in return for Brendan Donovan here? And then the second side of it too is we keep hearing that name Noah Cameron come up. I'm not gonna lie, not a fan of that being the headliner of a Brendan Donovan return. So do you guys think that's more of like the baseline what the Cardinals are looking at here, and they're trying to get more out of this, or do you really think we might be overestimating what they get for Donovan?
I think the Cardinals, I think we talked ourselves into this idea where there's like a 99% chance Donovan gets traded. And while I think it's more likely than not, look, I think if the package isn't there, they're not going to do it. They don't have to. Donovan's a great player. He brings fans out to the ballpark. He's clearly a St. Louis favorite, and they don't have to trade him. They've still got multiple years of control. In theory, they could still sign an extension. I don't think they will, but it's something they could explore. And they also have multiple chances to move him in the future. If the return's not there this offseason, there's no reason they can't trade him at the deadline next year. You know, What it would do is it would give you an opportunity to maybe be a little bit better than you thought you'd be next year if you kept him around. But I know people aren't excited about that, and they shouldn't do that. They should move on from assets if the deals are there. But if the deal's not there, you can't force it. You should not trade Brendan Donovan for a bag of chips. It's just a terrible idea. It's not like Nolan Arenado where you're trying to move off money and you're trying to open, doors for young players. The doors are already open. Brendan Donovan's not blocking JJ Weatherholt, right? Brendan Donovan is one of your young guys that's a stud that you can get something real back for. So they shouldn't do anything like that. Maybe Ketel Marte definitely is going to set the market, right? He's a better player than Brendan Donovan. Ketel Marte has been in MVP races before. That's a level that, at least to this point in his career, Donovan has not played at, right? But at the same time, I don't think Ketel Marte's, I don't think him being potentially available. One, he's been available in the past, and the Diamondbacks have yet to move him. But two, I don't think him being available is going to damage Brendan Donovan's market. Second base is already a very thin position, especially in the National League. So yeah, I don't think it's going to really change things. It'll set the market for sure, but I don't think it's going to necessarily, hinder Brendan Donovan's market.
Andrew, do you think this at all potentially Brandon Lau, Ketel Marte hurts his market?
Yeah, I think it definitely adds more players into the second base market, but Brendan Donovan can play any position. So I don't think more second basemen being available necessarily hurts that. Like, you can definitely put him wherever you want, right? He played left field a lot in 2024. He can play some third. Shortstop, probably not, but, he can fill in there. It's kind of a guy you can play wherever you want. I know Ketel Marte can play outfield. I think Brandon Lau can play a little bit outfield too, but with that versatility, definitely adds to his value. I don't know. Ketel Marte definitely makes it so that, the Cardinals don't necessarily have all of the best hitters on the market. Like Ketel Marte would definitely be first, and then it would be whoever the Cardinals are shopping, Contreras, Donovan, Nootbaar, whoever else after that. But I definitely think that, it would probably make the Cardinals more hesitant to give up Brendan Donovan in a trade, because teams are probably going to pivot to Brandon Lau if the asking price gets too high. I think some of those options definitely make it a little bit worse. I just looking at the pitching market, what the Cardinals got for Sonny Gray kind of surprised me, because you didn't expect the pitching market to develop that way, but that's just kind of how it's been. The Mariners traded a top 100 prospect for a reliever. So crazy things have been happening. Shota took his qualifying offer. A lot of things, like pitching is getting expensive. Well, the Cubs offered him a qualifying offer to begin with. I think that was a mistake, but just guys that you don't expect to be getting that much money or getting a lot of money. I don't know if that's going to happen with the hitting side of things. I know there's not a lot of great hitters available, aside from the really high end, like Kyle Tucker or Pete Alonso. But I generally think that pitching is more valuable at this offseason at this point. It's kind of how the market's been going the last couple of seasons. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals don't get as much as, we would expect for Brendan Donovan. But either way, I think it might be smart to move on from him unless you're really just not getting anything back.
Yeah, I still think they're going to get a good return. And because I think when we first had these conversations, my whole thing was, I get the idea of trading Brendan Donovan, but I don't think you're going to get as much as you would want, because people seem to try and downplay that he's not a really good player, and that's why you should trade him. But then in the same breath also say you're going to get a lot for him, which doesn't make sense. But it does seem like the league values him in that kind of way. So I do think Chaim Bloom is not going to settle for something. I'm more concerned about Noah Cameron's name coming up, just because it's his name keeps coming up. So there's something there, but until they pull the trigger on something like that, I'm going to believe that Bloom is going to shoot higher than that. I know Noah Cameron has a really nasty curveball, and I know he got good results this past year, but overall doesn't really seem to be that high velocity left-hander crazy stuff that Bloom tends to target here. I do think it's interesting. I think that there's been conversation, and I think it's totally fair from different people who've been like, well, why are the Cardinals targeting pitching when they had a terrible outfield offense last year? And it's not like this offense by any means is locked and ready to go. Something Derek Gould talked about in his podcast recently, and I thought was really interesting and a good way to look at this, is it really does seem like Bloom is targeting a lot of arms and trying to stockpile pitching because A, you can't have enough pitching, but B, you look at this market and you look at whether it's free agency or trades, it's really hard to acquire pitching. And so if you hit on enough of it, A, your own pitching's in good shape, but B, then you have the trade chips to go and get that bat that you need. So instead of trying to predict, oh, we need to go try and acquire 3 outfielders, hope one of them pans out, you acquire all these arms and multiple of them do, and then you've got an extra guy waiting around where it's like, I'm just gonna not saying it should be him, but like, what if in a couple of years Quinn Matthews is a good starter, but you don't need him, and you could flip him for young outfielder that's going to pop off, or put him as a bigger part of a bigger package for a bigger bat that you need for the center of your lineup. I think that kind of stuff makes sense here, and why I like the idea that the Cardinals are targeting these young arms. Plus, with the fact that, I mean, you do have a lot of guys that just need opportunity on the big league roster right now, or I shouldn't say need, but you can keep giving opportunity to, between Lars Nootbaar, Jordan Walker, obviously JJ Weatherholt's going to be in there, other bats like that. But then in the future, you're looking at Reinel. Hopefully, you're looking at Baez maybe by the end of this next year, if not going into 2027. One of the interesting wrinkles, though, that I think is, it doesn't seem like even if the Cardinals hold Donovan, that means they're going to look at an extension. It seems like if they hold him, it's that they're hoping to maybe then flip him at the deadline instead. And again, the one wrinkle, and I'm curious what you guys think about this, and I don't want to get into the JoJo market, especially in light of the Harry Ford trade from yesterday now. I mean, time flies. But I wonder what this deadline is going to look like, because right now we're a little under a year away from a potential work stoppage. But when you get to July, I think most people have a pretty good feel about whether or not we're truly not just trending toward it, but if it's going to be really bad or not. And so you could get to July and say, hey, we could flip Nootbaar, we could flip Donovan at that time and get stuff in return. But teams might be looking and be like, we have a year and a half of control. Teams might look at it as, no, we have half a year of control, because we're not going to play in 2027 and we're not going to get that year of control, or we're going to play half a season or whatever it is, or there's so much uncertainty that those guys just carry rental value at that point. So I do think there is some pressure here to really truly make a decision that you have to make a move. I still think the Cardinals hold the leverage and the cards here, especially when it comes to Donovan. There's so much interest out there. The Nootbaar side of it, those things is interesting, because it's like, well, I see on one hand, if he has a really strong first half, that you've got a year and a half of control, but I also see a lot of teams saying, well, rental bats don't really get you anything, and Nootbaar might be a rental bat at that point. So I know I kind of rambled a little bit there, but do you guys like the philosophy of the targeting pitching in these trades? And then the side part of that too is, do you see more risk than what's being led on from holding these bats beyond this time of year?
I love the idea of targeting pitching. I was thinking about it as you were saying that. The Cardinals never have enough dart throws when you think about young pitching. If you go back a couple of years and you really sit there and put together, they had this like big four sort of pitching prospects, right? Between your like Alex Reyes. I mean, that's even farther back, but between Tink Hence, Tekoa Roby, Cooper Jerpy, and I don't know, pick another name that the Cardinals would have had in there, right? Before Quinn Matthews really emerged as their top pitching prospects. None of those guys have pitched effectively at the big league level yet. You know, it seemed like they had this young core that had really developed, and there was a lot to be excited about, and they've all been hurt. They've all been ineffective at times in the minors too. Oh, maybe not Jerpy. He's been great when healthy, but they've all been hurt. None of it's really worked out. I guess you can talk about Libby too. The Cardinals have had so many exciting young arms at some point or another, and basically none of them have worked out. And that's because they just haven't had enough dart throws. When you think about a team like the Mariners or the Brewers, where they consistently produce pitching talent, sure, it's because they do hit on those high-end guys like a Miz Urowski or a Brian Wu. But at the same time, it's because the sheer amount of dart throws, one of them is going to hit eventually. And so if you're the Cardinals, you need to be loading up, because that's how you win. That's how you develop real pitching, because you can have 3 or 4 high-end guys like a Tink Hence, but when he's hurt, he's hurt. And that's how it's been for the Cardinals. It's been terrible luck, but the only way to outperform bad injury luck is to just have enough guys that it can't possibly happen to all of them.
Yeah, I agree. I think pitching, that's what these teams build upon, like the Rays, the Guardians, and like even the Dodgers have a stable of young arms. They're never going to use them, but like they're there and they can develop those guys. They can use them in trades. All these teams that do it so well, like that's what happens, right? Like And I think the Cardinals, in terms of like their hitting prospects as well, like their offensive, like everyone talks about how bad their outfield is or whatever, but there's guys in the minor leagues that could be intriguing, probably more intriguing than some of the arms that are there, right? Like Joshua Baez, I feel like has a lot more like star upside than like Quinn Matthews, right? Like Quinn Matthews is probably going to be a fine major league starter, but I don't think he's going to develop into that guy that ends up winning a Cy Young one day or does things like that. And like, I'm not expecting that from the Cardinals' top prospects like ever, but if you have enough guys like that, eventually one of them will probably click and you'll get something really, really good. And I just feel like the Cardinals have been better at developing those like fringy, role player type of position players anyway, where like, yeah, right now, Nootbaar, Scott, and Walker is your outfield, and you don't know if Nootbaar is going to be healthy for opening day. Scott, offensively, whatever you get is what you get, and then Walker is probably just never going to figure it out. And that's rough, but you have guys I think that can fill that, and you can also use the pitching to trade for more high upside bats like that as well. So like you don't have to just hoard pitching. You can use that as assets and go get other things too. So I don't really think it matters what kind of prospects you're getting, as long as you're getting the best available prospects. You can turn those prospects into other things when you're ready to contend too. Like it's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's true. You can always convert, and it'd be nice to see the Cardinals deal from a surplus. It feels like every time the Cardinals have made a trade that hurts at all, it hurts so much because there just isn't depth in the system. Whereas now, I don't know if it would hurt quite as bad, but like go back to the Ozuna trade, right? We didn't know at the time that Alcantara and Gallen were probably the two best arms in the system, except for maybe Flaherty and Reyes, but because of the injuries. We didn't know that at the time. Our evaluators were wrong and we were wrong. But it hurts so bad because there just wasn't pitching depth in the system to make up for losing them. And I think if the Cardinals could deal from a position of strength, if they could build up that system to look more like what Seattle has now, where you just are littered with top end prospects, then you're talking about a team that, doesn't have to hurt every time and can open the checkbook in terms of minor league talent to go acquire a Jesus Luzardo or some other big starter that comes on the market.
Yeah, I think part of the tricky part back then too is that at that point in that range, they were coming to the end of their development, especially in pitching development, being as incredible as it was.
Absolutely.
And so they didn't evolve, but like you look at, so you go that to 2017 range, they sold Alex Reyes leading the bunch, which again, you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. Like when it's Paul Skeens, okay, you can do that. But even then, it's like he's an injury away from derailing things, right? Like Steven Strasburg was the Paul Skeens, but then injuries kind of killed his career, but he still ended up having a good career. Beside the point, you had Alex Reyes, you had Luke Weaver still, you had Jack Flaherty, you had Dakota Hudson, you had Austin Gomber, which again, we have the hindsight, Jordan Hicks, Marco Gonzalez, we have the hindsight now to be like, okay, those guys didn't work out. Johan Oviedo in the lower levels of minor leagues. But a lot of those guys have had big league careers, right? Like Oviedo just got dealt to Boston, is supposed to be a major part of their rotation. Jack Flaherty obviously has had a great career. Alex Reyes, again, had the stuff. Luke Weaver's had a good career. The problem is the Cardinals, like, they gave up the two who ended up becoming Cy Young contenders, which sucks. But then their pitching development really deteriorated from there. But I do think if you can get back to a place where they were in like 2016, 2017, again, if you rerun that simulation 10 times, I think it goes better a lot more often, or at least it goes better. Doesn't mean it goes best.
Better than all of them.
Yeah, it probably is like, this is probably one of the worst outcomes for them in that scenario. But if you get back to that space, then you can go make that Marcell Ozuna type trade in the future, or they pulled off Giancarlo Stanton right before that, right? Which I think people forget about that. Of like, when have the Cardinals ever traded for a $300 million contract, or why would they ever do that? They did it with Giancarlo Stanton. He just said no. Like, and again, the Miami Marlins were going to eat some money on that deal, but I do think it's something where Bloom's talked about, like the more you can accumulate all this talent, just have a surplus of it, then you can go and be aggressive, especially as a now small market team. But hopefully we'll be getting back to the upper mid side of things in the near future. So I like that they're targeting this pitching. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I was just listening to Baseball America does a podcast, which hopefully they release on YouTube at some point, the Cardinals clip of it, but they only released some parts of it, but they did this for just subscribers on there. But when they broke down the Cardinal system, they were like very complimentary. And that clearly is the third to the Brewers and the Pirates in the NL Central right now, but had them as a top 10 system in baseball. They don't have official ranking yet, but they're like, by the time we do these, Cardinals will be a top 10 system. And they made the argument that their top 4 prospects right now could probably rival any top 4 in any other system. It doesn't mean that they would pick them above all other ones. Now, again, they don't have the depth of Milwaukee,
Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle. You would still take Pittsburgh's over them right now, especially Connor
Detroit,
Griffin. But they talk about like JJ's a top 5 prospect right now. Is a guy who could be a top 20 prospect in the waiting. Liam Doyle's a top 30 guy. And then Joshua Baez, like that dude raked last year. And so I think part of the hesitancy even to put them up a level, those top 4 guys, is that right now and Baez are giving us 1 year right now, where if they repeat those type of numbers again in 2026, then they both shoot up even further. Like Baez has gone from a not even the Cardinals top 30 prospects to now potentially top 75 prospect in all of baseball with 30-30 upside, home runs and stolen bases, and cut his whiff rate in like half this past year, or strikeout rate in half this past year, which is incredible because he was terrible before and could be potentially play some center field, but probably more of like a really good corner defender or a good corner defender. Like that sounds like what Tyler O'Neill is supposed to be to me. And so it's like you've got that in your system. You've got JJ Weatherhole, who again, maybe doesn't have the ceiling of a Connor Griffin and Jesus Made, but also has a higher floor than maybe some of those guys do and can be a true star. Reinell's got that star level bat. Doyle's got upside. I think the difference between the early 2020s Cardinals and what we're seeing now is you would have maybe 1, maybe 2 guys you bet on the upside of, like Jordan Walker, Mason Wynn, Dylan Carlson at different times. But then there's a lot of guys you're hoping are kind of contributing big leaguers. And I think part of what they're trying to do in these trades too is go get that Brandon Clark that has the upside to potentially be more, knowing that you do have some stuff in the system you can already rely on right now. So why not go take some swings to really see if you could really up this system, really up your future in a way, rather than going and targeting, which is why I'd be frustrated by it, a Noah Cameron that I think most of us probably agree is a back end of the rotation type guy. So we'll see what happens there. But I do think it's interesting. Let's talk about the JoJo Romero side of things. I want to thank a couple of sponsors of our podcast real quick, but JoJo, it seems like the market's heated up per reports on things as well, and especially with the lack of left-handed options in free agency. And then you saw a huge deal happen. Well, okay, sorry. Huge deal in terms of name, but I think most people are like, it actually made sense for both sides, so I don't think people should be going crazy over it. The Nationals lefty be sent to Seattle, and Washington got Harry Ford back in return, who's been a top 100 prospect at different times in his career, clearly blocked by Cal Riley right now, so there wasn't really a future for him there. I believe the reliever has like 4 years of team control, so it's different than JoJo, who's going to his last year, but obviously JoJo has the track record, high-end talent, high-end production at this point. Do you expect JoJo, Sandy, to be moved this week? And if so, like, are you thinking something comparable to Seattle just gave up, or do you think the control makes a huge difference here?
I mean, the control makes a really big difference. And there's a lot to like about Ferrer, the guy headed back. He throws 100. He's very nasty. He was closing games for the Nationals at the end of last year. I don't think they're going to try to start him, but he's got great stuff. And so there's definitely huge upside for a guy that, yeah, people can say, oh, it's a random reliever from the Nationals, but I think that's a little disingenuous when you talk about a guy who has tons of control, great stuff, great velocity, and was closing games. But it's a huge haul nonetheless. It probably, I mean, might have been a heist for the Nationals still in some sense. Just what they got back is pretty awesome. Harry Ford coming back, a guy that's been consistently in Pipeline's top 100, consistently ranked as one of the best catching prospects in all of baseball. And from what I know, he's produced. I haven't really looked into it recently, but I'm pretty sure he's been solid for Seattle's minor league teams. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a great deal for the Nationals. Now, at the same time, I don't think that's going to like totally inform the JoJo Romero market because we're talking about a rental. We're talking about a guy who, yeah, the track record is there, but also he's been a little up and down at times. And sometimes the advanced metrics haven't loved JoJo Romero. So I wonder what teams will think about it. But being a lefty, probably very advantageous. And I think we talked about this at the deadline last year, but in a national league where, right-handed hitters have been so dominant, or left-handed hitters have been so dominant in the National League, a shutdown lefty like JoJo Romero that can neutralize them is so important. So maybe that plays some role as teams, sort of stock up in preparation for this season. But yeah, I don't think you're going to see a return like Harry Ford. Should be something. It should be worthwhile, but it's not going to be Harry Ford.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care what you get back for JoJo as long as it's not like garbage because
Well, I think you can get a lot for JoJo at the
I think you can get a lot for him, but like at the end of the day, it's a rental reliever. JoJo's had his ups and downs consistency wise. Like I just care that you get something back for JoJo. I don't care if it's a top 100 prospect. It's not going to be a top 100 prospect. But if it's like something intriguing with upside, I don't care if it's a position player, a reliever, if it's Matt Swanson. If it's Matt Swanson, that's great. Like you go out and you get that guy that can be JoJo when your timeline is here, right? Like that would be great. I just don't think JoJo fits the timeline of this team anymore, right? I would much rather give that opportunity to a lot of the intriguing arms that, the Cardinals have in their system. I feel like bullpen is one of the things they do really well. They really go out and target the guys that have high upside, whether you want to give the opportunities to Matt Swanson or like Kyle Leahy. I know Kyle Leahy's maybe penciled in as a starter. I don't know if I love
they've
right
made
now.
it pretty clear that they expect him to be a starter and they want him to win a job. Doesn't mean he won't end up in the bullpen, but
I mean, I don't love that for him, but or just for the team in general, but sure, go ahead and do whatever you want. Like try different things in the bullpen. But if you have a guy that has only 1 year of control left and you can get something back for him, I really do think that's what's supposed to happen. I think you have to go out and do that. I think it would be really dumb if they held on to JoJo when they could get something back for him. I think it was dumb that they didn't trade him at the deadline, to be honest. Like that was probably when you're going to get the most value back for him. But here's the chance to make it right, I guess. Like now it's not Mo making the decision, so maybe we can see something right.
I do think there's an underrated side of this too. Like to your point, Andrew, or I really do think the big win here is trade him. Like it's different than Donovan, where it's like if you don't get the offers now, it'd be really dumb to sell low, or to settle. But when it comes to JoJo, it's like you're making a lot of risk for little gain to not move him. And again, you don't.
Well, if the offer sucks, though, is it that big a deal to hold him? Even if he's not good, it's like, okay, you missed out on something that's not great. Whereas he could fetch a very nice return at the deadline.
Yeah,
they could have traded him at the last time.
Could, but I think it's different than Ryan Helsley or Devin Williams or guys like that, where you're like pretty confident they're going to be great at the deadline. And JoJo is someone where it's like he had great results, but I'm also not would not be shocked at all if he has a down year in 2026. Now, do I think he could be awesome in 2026? Yes. And again, I'm not saying they should trade him for scraps on the dollar and 5 cents on the dollar. Like, obviously they shouldn't do that, but we'll never know what they're actually being offered unless it's reported. My guess is that Mo has passed on deals before that it's like, yeah, is it not peak value? Possibly, but is it good enough value that you should be making that move now instead of too late? Probably. And I really do think this is going to be a test and show us this Cardinal scouting department and the revamps that Bloom's made on that realm. Again, we saw it with this Sonny Gray trade where they really went and targeted a Brandon Clark to bring in, who, again, I know they made the move with Boston, but Fitz and Clark were both brought in post Bloom. Bloom's talked about how Fitz is someone that they had looked at when he was with the Red Sox before they got him from New York. But then Brandon Clark was a guy that they're really interested in. And I do think it's a way that you can really rebuild farm systems on the fly or strengthen them even as a contender. Because I was talking or realized this the other day, I was turned on to this, that 3 of the Dodgers' top 5 prospects right now are prospects they acquired in trades. Zaire Hope, Mike Sirota, Jackson Ferris. And so if you have a good, and there's the Gavin Lux trade and the Michael Busch trade. Again, Michael Busch, big name. Gavin Lux, big-ish name, but was clearly a really great deal for the Dodgers to move him there. I think this is where the Cardinals need to start flexing their muscles a little bit long-term too, is that even as they get into being a spender and a contender long-term, they need to know the value of their assets and when is it time to sell and move and rebuild that system so you can continue to be a contender over time. And where do you have the organizational depth, because you have 6-7 starters right now. Did not do it on purpose, but let's hit the meme.
My kids are going to be so.
Oh no!
My kids are going to be so disappointed in me for not making a 6-7 joke.
You're welcome,
You're
guys.
banned. You're banned. You're banned.
To ban me, I dare you.
Bannable
the chat loves it, I bet. But in the future, if you've got 6 or 7 starters, and maybe that's not a great one, but yeah, or high level ones or ones you really like, you turn one of them into prospects so you can keep churning this out long term. I think it's just one of the things I'm curious to see what happens with this regime. So got a couple more trade conversation we'll have, and then maybe we can round it out a little bit, draft lottery, because I think it's really interesting. A lot of people I don't think understand how how much literally moving up 1 or 2 spots can drastically change the next 2 drafts for the Cardinals, as well as the free agent front. But as always, we are sponsored and presenting sponsor. The Deal on the Cards podcast is 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're located at 9640 All Boulevard in Olivet. Open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday and 10 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. They buy, sell, and trade all sports cards, Pokemon cards, any kind of cards you can think of. They have new selections of packs, boxes, and single cards of local players and stars from out of the league. Make sure you go check them out. And then we'll be live at 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles on December 16th for the charity live stream. We're partnering with Brendan Donovan to raise money for the Kaufman Fund. Brendan will be joining us for the first portion of the night. And then we're going to have different guests during the stream, like Rob Cerfolio, Derek Gould, Katie Wu, and Bernie Miklasz are joining us in person. Maybe Jeff Jones in person. We'll see that too. But Jeff will be with us for the evening. Trevor Rosenthal.
Are we wearing our different hats for Katie Wu, who just got traded?
You can do the Dodgers one if you'd like. Yes, Katie did get traded, but it's gonna be fun to have her in person with us right before she goes. So sad face, but we'll have Katie with us, and hopefully we've got a couple more special guests to announce soon. We'll see if we get the confirmation or not, but you'll want to join us for that. But as always, really appreciate the 314. I also want to tell you about our newest sponsor of the podcast, and that's True North Gloves. TrueNorthGloves.com is where you can find them at. They're the official headband of Brendan Donovan. So you've seen him wear this one before. I've got a bunch on my desk sitting here of different Brendan Donovan themed ones. They also do just all kinds of different designs you can find on there. I wear my headband when I'm running or mowing or doing stuff that gets my dumb hair in my face. And if you have friends in your life, or maybe you play baseball or you know someone who does, these are super fun to have. Or for other activities. They also make baseball batting gloves, pickleball gloves, golf gloves, hats, all kinds of things at True North Gloves. They're a St. Louis local business, since we love the sport local. And if you use that code TrueNorth25 that you see on your screen now, again, it's TrueNorth25, you can get 25% off your order. Go to TrueNorthGloves.com to check out their features and their stock. They've got awesome stuff going on there. I know some of you have already shopped there already. So go make sure you go check them out. We appreciate True North and their sponsorship. So what are you guys going to do next? Sandy, Nolan or Lars?
Wait, Nolan Gorman or Lars Nootbaar? Or Nolan
that's true. There's 2 Nolans. How about Gorman, Newt, or Nato?
I mean, I want to trade Nato first. That's my top priority.
Okay, let's talk sorry, I just was like, what topic you want to go with first? My bad.
I understand. Let's talk about Arenado. Okay. They've got to trade him, right? I think Arenado is the most likely to be traded, right?
You want to hear some teams that have been thrown out there?
Sure.
Okay, so this is from Derek Gould today, not MLB Live, but the Red Sox, Tigers are two that are considering a third baseman like last year, as are the Angels and the Mariners.
Oh no.
So that's interesting. And then 2 other names are out there. Again, he's not saying these are all like checking in at the same levels, but they're all just names to watch here. Would be the Phillies, who Jeff Jones has brought up many times before, and a new little, I'd say a new contender to the mix, the Arizona Diamondbacks have at least a team to be watching.
Are the Pirates out now?
I think the Pirates have always been out on Nato.
I thought they were in on him at one point. Were they not?
No, I think that
would be so. Nolan Arenado being traded to the Pirates would be so.
They were in on somebody.
They're in on Brendan, or they're called on Brendan Donovan, and actually all the lefties knew.
I thought they called on Arenado too, but I guess not.
That would be funny. Again, I'm curious. I think you guys probably agree with this one. I don't think this move happens soon. I think you have to wait out the Bregman market. You probably have to wait out Eugenio Suarez, Bo Bichette, your Jorge Polanco. Like, I think there's a lot of names that got to move off the board before people pivot to Nolan Arenado. And I also don't even know if I would say he's the most likely guy to be traded. I think he's the one the Cardinals are like for sure want. I mean, I think they for sure want to trade Donovan and Romero as well. But I think those guys are easier to see because you don't have the no trade clause and the money to mess with. Yeah. But when it comes to Arenado, like there are worlds where the chairs, the music stops and the chairs are taken, and Nolan's still a Cardinal again. I think it's far more likely this year than it was last year, even though I think we were all like, Nolan's gonna be traded. I think a lot of that was just us wishful thinking and also thinking the market was gonna move differently. I do think it's more likely this year Nolan's gone. But I do think there's a world where they get stuck with him. Andrew, if you had to make a bet today, do you think Arenado's a Cardinal in 2026, or do you think the Cardinals are able to find a suitor there?
I mean, I think all of those teams you just mentioned are teams he would probably waive it for, because he has made it clear that his list has to get bigger.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine his list of teams that he would say no to has anyone other than the Pirates, the White Sox, the Rockies, and the Marlins or these teams that just he knows are going to be. No, I think he probably would say yes to Houston, but I don't think Houston would say yes to him, unfortunately. But
yeah, they don't need him.
The only team on that list that I can kind of be yeah, if they wanted Arenado and the trade was in, he'd probably say no, is maybe Arizona, maybe. But I feel Arizona's in a better spot, and the Angels, obviously, whatever. But I feel he would actually say yes to the Angels. I think they were on his list last year, right? That's
they were rumored to be, but I don't think. Actually, I think he was maybe presented with something, and the idea of it. He didn't. I don't think. If I remember right, don't quote me on this. If I remember right, the Cardinals did because there's levels of talks where you could check in and talk about it, and I think it was one that Nolan was pretty clear. I'm probably not going to do that because even Houston was on the list, and then he ended up saying no. So I think it was it's if you have a top 5 preferences and where you go, but really you have 2. I think it's one of those things. Where it's I'm open to all of them, but really I want to go to the LA, the Dodgers, not Angels or Boston. And didn't work out.
I mean, Alek Manoah finished 3rd in Cy Young voting a couple 4 years ago. So, maybe he'll find something there and they'll be good.
Oh my gosh.
It's possible, and Arenado could turn it up, and the Angels might make the playoffs.
Well, sorry, when I was saying the Angels thing, I was saying for last year, but I actually agree with you. I think Angels make a ton of sense now.
Yeah. And now they don't have Rendon, so they Arenado will probably win over the fans. He doesn't have a great attitude, but it's better than Rendon. So, and you're paying him less, so who cares at that point? But I don't know. I feel the Diamondbacks are the one team you mentioned that I'd be maybe he wouldn't go there. But that's also closer to his home as well. He's a LA guy, so you get to go play the Dodgers all the time. Maybe he doesn't want to do that though. But yeah, I think I would be shocked if he was still on a team next year. I really don't there's no way they don't trade him, right? It's just been too widely reported. I feel some team is going to be sure, we'll take you, because he's not terrible. He's not great, but he's not terrible.
What's the team? I think that's the $1 million question. It's not will the Cardinals do it? Will Nolan say yes at this point? It's what team will say yes.
I always like the Angels. I think that's funny.
I think the Angels make a ton of sense.
I think it's really funny. I think it's right where he wants to be. He's made it kind of clear that he wants to play for the Dodgers. The Dodgers have made it very clear that they don't want him to play for them. So it would be funny if he did end up going to their neighbor down south. But they need a third baseman. They always want to pretend to win every year. So go there and pretend to win.
That's fair. He could play with Mike Trout. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, they played together in the WBC. So maybe they're friends.
Yeah, I think it makes some sense to go to the Angels. I think that might be the most likely team. I really just wish he'd gone to Houston. It would have been great. It would have been great for everybody if last year he had just gone to Houston.
Yeah, if I think it would have happened if Tucker got traded afterwards.
Yeah. I think if I were to rank it right now, I'd say Angels to me feel if tiers. Angels are tier 1 in terms of likelihood to me, where I feel I don't see issues on either of the 3 fronts. I think I could totally see the Angels doing it. I totally see all of them. I could totally see the Cardinals doing it. I don't think they're picky at all. The Cubs call. They're see ya, go have fun. They don't care. And then I think Nato would be fine there. Would it be his number 1 option? Probably not. But I think he'd do it. Tier 2 is where I'm I don't know if the team does it, but I think they're more likely than tier 3, where I'm I really don't see it. I think the Phillies could. But I do think all 3 of these teams, it'll depend on how the market goes. I think the Red Sox could, because clearly they had a deal lined up before, so they've gone down that path before. And I do think the Diamondbacks are interesting. I think they're a team that, again, I don't think he'd be at the top of Arenado's list, but if the plates spin and they need to refill third base, or fill third base, and there's not really options out there. I remember when I was doing some research, there were a team I put out there for Arenado at one point earlier this offseason, and they had like some of the worst defense at third base last year. They just had a bad defense in general. I think that could be an appealing thing to them. And then tier 3, to me, the ones I just don't see happening is Detroit and Seattle. Like, I think Seattle has other options they could go figure out that they prefer. And then Detroit, I also think the same. Like, I just don't see them making that complicated of a move. But it would be kind of funny to have Javi Baez and Nolan Arenado on the same team. But
yeah.
Do you think do you think if Goldie goes back to Arizona that Arenado would be more likely?
I don't know how their, off the top of my head, their corner infield situation looks. Like, could they fit both?
I mean, maybe. Because they had Suarez at third last year and then they traded him. So
yeah, actually, it could work because it depends on what they want to do with Jordan Lawler. Which, I mean, I guess Jordan Lawler could be their second baseman next year if they trade Marte. Goldie's playing first base. Maybe Pavin Smith is the DH and Arenado plays third. I could see that. But yeah, and then, I mean, so Arenado, obviously they want to move. We'll see what happens. I don't see it happening this week. But Nolan Gorman, Lars Nootbaar, Alec Burleson all get calls as well. Feels like Burley feels pretty unlikely, especially just because I think they really value keeping him at this point. Nolan Gorman, I think they are not married to keeping it all, but I also could see a world where they just don't get real offers, and so they run it back one more time. Especially, I think they're going to have the playing time for it.
Yeah.
Nootbaar is the one at this point. And I think we talked about this. Like, I think I know we have. I just don't see him going, and it seems that the Cardinals are definitely leaning that way. There's people in the industry who don't even really think the Cardinals say he's available, but they don't really think he actually truly is, because whatever a team would be willing to pay for him, it doesn't seem like the Cardinals would want to do. And that's one that I understand. I do think there's that interesting argument that we talked about earlier about how likely are people to pay for guys with another year of control at the deadline to give you what you want. But even then, if Lars has a good first half, he's probably more valuable as a half a year rental than coming off surgery. Who knows who he is? 2 years of control, but some teams might even see as 1 year of control at that point, and they don't even know if he's gonna start opening day. So they're like, "Well, we're gonna get 2026 at all." So, Sandy, would you trade Nootbaar at this point? I mean, obviously, if you get blown away with an offer, you do it. But
sure, I'm with you. I don't think the offer is going to be there. I mean, I'm so glad the offer was there for Gray, obviously, but I don't know. I think the offer will be there eventually for Donovan. I think it'll be there if they trade Contreras. But other than that, I don't know what you're really looking for any of these guys. You know, the market's going to be weird this offseason. And yeah, that extra year control is like potentially worthless to some clubs right now, which is a real shame, because I think Nootbaar with 2 years is a much more appealing. Well, obviously, but he's an appealing asset with that kind of time. You know, he's still a StatCast darling. There are still a lot of things to like about his game. It'd be really nice if you had that, I don't know, that benefit of another year. But yeah, I'm just not sure what the market will look like. And I think I'll probably hold him if I'm the Cardinals. Plus, like, fans love Lars Nootbaar. I don't think you're getting anything great back. It's probably worth just having him here to like slog through whatever this season looks like, you know?
Yeah. And it does seem like at this point they're just trying to maximize what they can get for Wilson. So I fully envision if they do make that move, it's very similar to Gray, where they're going to eat however much money they need to get something that's worth it in return, or else they probably just keep him. And he wants to stay here too, so it's not like they need to make that kind of move. But I am hopeful and interested in the idea that they could maximize that return as well. So two other things real quick on the way out. Obviously, the Cardinals targeting pitching in free agency. I think, again, we don't expect those type of things to happen now, but as some people start to find landing spots and it becomes a little bit slimmer about what options there are, I think they're going to find a starter and a reliever at some point. When I continually just use them as the name because it's the one I really like, but also I think it fits the mold. Like, if you look at like a Dustin May type, part of the appeal of a St. Louis versus going to a contender is like if you went to someone like the Dodgers or New York, not saying these teams want him, but if they go to a big market like that and he has 5 or 6 bad starts, he might get DFA'd or sent to the bullpen or something. When in St. Louis, he could truly have a year to rebuild his value and be flipped at the deadline. So it helps at both sides. So I do think they're going to go after a starter in that mold at some point. And then assuming JoJo's gonna be on the way out too, it sounds like they want a veteran reliever. Do you guys think there should be any other things on their shopping list in free agency, Andrew, or do you think at this
I
point?
mean, maybe a bat, like a right-handed bat for the bench, but like I don't know. It depends on what kind of moves they make. I wouldn't mind seeing something like that happen instead of giving like Jose Fermin a bunch of plate appearances or something like that, which, you know, who knows? Maybe he'll be really good next year. But I'm a little bit annoyed that they didn't go after some of those guys from Asia. I know Anthony Kay signed for like $10 million for 2 with the White Sox, which is like, okay, why didn't you do that? I'm sure he would probably rather play here than play for like the White Sox, you know, like, and I feel like most of the guys that come back from NPB or the KBO have a good first half, and then you trade them at the deadline, kind of like the White Sox did once and scammed the Cardinals. You know, what if the Cardinals did that this time instead? But I guess that's done. There was also the KBO MVP. I think he signed somewhere. I don't remember, but a similar Eric Fetty type situation where like, why didn't you go get that guy? Like, he signed for nothing, and most of those guys come back with different stuff. People don't really know how to do it for a little bit, and then like Miles Michaelis, they're an all-star, and then they fall off. And
all right. Hey, that's some revisionist history right there on my boy Miles. He was an all-star in 2018 and 2022.
I don't know what happened in 2022, but like he was really good in 2018, and then he was not as good in 2019.
But he was still good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but like guys like that, I feel like they start strong. Even some of the like Kodai Senga started so strong, and now he's like he's gonna get traded and sent to the minors, or like who knows what's going on. Like Eric Fetty, familiar with that situation, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Stuff like that. I feel like those are the kinds of moves I want to see the Cardinals make, and I'm a little bit annoyed they didn't go on and do it, especially when they didn't really do anything. Wait, did he sign with the Blue Jays?
Mm-hmm.
I thought he signed with the White Sox. Someone signed with the White Sox. One of the KBO guys signed with the White Sox.
Cody Ponce signed with the Blue Jays.
Oh yeah. But Anthony Kay signed with the White Sox, right?
Oh yeah, I think you're right. I thought I could. Yeah, I don't think Anthony Kay signed.
I'm pretty sure he signed with the White Sox.
Let me double check.
But yeah, Cody Ponce.
Yeah, he was with the White Sox. That's what I'm saying. Like, surely he would rather come to the Cardinals.
Yeah,
maybe.
That's true.
But
2-year, $12 million contract. Yeah, that would have been
like,
kind of
so free.
Cardinals.
Yeah.
But I think they could have gone up, or I think they can. Well, Anthony Kay is someone that would be interesting potentially, but I think you can go a little bit higher, especially as they start to move. Part of the advantage they wait a little bit longer here is $7 million a year probably is what their price range is right now. But if they move some of that Nato money, they move a decent amount of Wilson's money to Donovan, like they're gonna have a lot of financial flexibility even while eating money on those deals. And so like I got into not debate, but someone on Twitter the other day was like, you don't like, this is dumb to add free agents, like why not just keep Gray at that point and stuff. And it's like, no, you're not just keeping Gray, you're getting Richard Fitz, Brandon Clark, and then money to spend on a Gray replacement that can also be flipped for future value. And so you might end up with that Sonny Gray slot in his money. You end up with Brandon Clark, Richard Fitz, and 2 more prospects by the end of July, rather than just Sonny Gray. And it's because you also free up that money to flip this other guy. And so I do think this makes a ton of sense, where like like in the chat, John Means, Lucas Giolito, Zach Eflin, like there's plenty of names, Max Scherzer, there are plenty of names out there. So I think at this point it's fine being patient, especially if you can move more money to go get the guy you actually want. So we'll see what happens there with that. But last thing, Tuesday, and I wonder if you guys want to be able to react to this on Birds on the Farm, is the MLB draft lottery. We've talked about this a little bit on the podcast before, but I do think it's a really interesting spot the Cardinals are in. I'd be curious what people in general feel about it going to the lottery. Right now, they have the 8th best odds to win the lottery. How the MLB draft lottery odds work, the Cardinals the Cardinals were never a payer team for the luxury tax, but they were. You can only have a top 10 pick or top 6 pick 1 year, and then you get bumped out to the top 10, if you're a revenue sharing team receiving, or if you were like the Cardinals before where they're in the middle where they don't pay or receive, you can have a top 6 pick 2 years in a row, and then you get bumped out of the top 10. 2024, they picked 7th overall. So yes, they were in the top 10, but that's not the lottery. The top 6 is. So you end up with JJ Weatherholt, and you got another, and you didn't count as a lottery pick. So This year they jumped into the top 5. They had Liam Doyle number 5. So with the 8th best odds this year, if the Cardinals move into the top 6, they cannot draft in the top 10 of the 2027 MLB draft. Where the Cardinals roster is trending currently, there is a pretty good chance I think they'll have the ability to draft in the top 10 in 2027 again based on their record. So it's like, do you want to risk that? I don't know. I would say if I'm the Cardinals right now, unless I'm jumping into number 1, when you're getting UCLA shortstop, yeah, it's like at that point I'm like the guarantee of that I'm taking number 1, maybe number 2 or 3 because you have some really interesting high upside high schoolers at that point. I'd probably be willing to jump that high. Otherwise, I think I'm like top 1 or 2 or 7 or lower. Like it's a weird thing to say because other drafts don't have this thing, but like I think drafting 4, 5, or if you drafted 6, I'd be like, bruh, like give me 2 spots later and I'm fine with it because there's a world where they end up having a bottom 4 or 5 record next year and they could have had a top 5 pick again, but they're drafting 11th or 12th or 10th because of where they move in this year's class. I'm fine drafting at the back end of the top 10 this year in the 6, 7, 8, or 7, 8, 9 range. I did 6, 7 again. 7, 8, 9 range rather than 4, 5, or 6. Now, obviously, I think if you can get number 1 in this draft, you have to do it because it's very rare this far out from a draft. You know who's going number 1 and for good reason. And so if the Cardinals can get that, 1,000%, I don't care if I'm picking 11th, 12th, or 13th in 2027, you take it. Yeah.
I want him so bad.
I think right now, I don't love MLB.com stuff usually on this, but I just think Baseball America doesn't have really updated on it yet. They have him 60 grades and everything except for his speed, or at least 45. He's a 65 grade prospect already. It's like he's insane.
He's got another year to develop before the draft, too. That's just
it's okay that he's a shortstop, guys. You don't have to trade Mason Wyndham, JJ Weatherall to make it work. Okay,
it's insane.
Okay.
He might not even like totally stick at shortstop because he's
kind of. You can play 3rd or 2nd, or who cares? If he's that good, you just draft him. You figure it out.
He's so good.
At that point, you might even be like, "Well, do you trade Mason Wyndham?" But like, I'm not. You that would not be the number 1 take. You don't. If they win the lottery on Tuesday, we should not be saying when is Mason Wyndham getting traded. That's not the take. But anyways, but do you guys? I mean, or do you think I'm making too much of this, Andrew, or do you think this truly is something to watch in terms of drafting 6 would be kind of frustrating?
Yeah, that probably wouldn't be great, but they're getting all these like extra draft picks now. Probably won't sign a qualifying offer guy. So, at the end of the day, like draft stuff is so weird that like you can find good guys at any point during the draft. So I'm not too worried about it, but yeah, I guess for top end talent, that's definitely something to look for.
I mean, next class is so exciting though. We never know like too much when we're this far out, but the reviews are great for the class after this one, like the 2027 class. So I would love to be able to draft in the top 5 in that class. And I also think the Cardinals are going to be worse next year than they were last year. So their odds to do so are going to be much higher, right? Like, I mean, I talked about how negatively I felt about the team. And yeah, if the Cardinals lose 100 games, like that's a top 3 pick. You're talking about like Rockies or Nationals level draft odds. That's awesome. That if they're going to lose all those games, like please be rewarded, So yeah, I'll be pissed off if they draft in the top 6 this year. Also, when you just think about how their timeline is working now, it makes a ton of sense to draft outside of the top 6 this year. And then they probably will have 2 consecutive top 6 drafts afterwards. Maybe not in 2028, but there's a great chance that they are still, not necessarily there yet by the time the 2028 draft rolls around. Their 2027 team might also stink.
Yeah, I didn't even really process that part. That's also another layer to it too.
It's where the timeline well. And then if you're take off and it doesn't matter, you're penalized, but you're already a playoff team.
Yeah, that's an added layer. That's a great point. That 2028 too, you would be barred potentially from making that pick. And so, yeah, I really think unless you're getting number 1, maybe number 2, please stay out of the top 6.
Yeah, I'd be fine with either of those. Like the prep shortstop that people are talking about going 2nd overall, very exciting as well. Obviously, like we've already talked about Chalowski, and I'm sure we'll talk about him plenty on Birds on the Farm over the next few months, whether the Cardinals have the number 1 pick or not. But yeah,
maybe they draft 7th again, and then Cholowski has a hamstring injury, and then he falls, and the Cardinals. There's no shot.
It's crazy that JJ Weatherholt was talked about as the number 1 pick, not only on draft night, obviously that happened, but going into the season, a lot of people thought, yeah, that's the number 1 pick in the class. A lot of boards had him as the 1-1 at the beginning of the college season, and then he got hurt, and then the Cardinals were able to get him at 7th after Cleveland wasn't able to cut the deal they wanted. They went with Bazzana. So yeah, maybe they do get lucky. Who knows? The draft is still 9 months away right now, closer to like 7 months away right now. So,
yeah. And also Radis Girl, I mean, it's so early. And again, I'm far from a draft expert, but most drafts top 10's littered with position players anyways. And as I'm kind of looking at it, doesn't really seem like there's a ton of arms that you're really projecting to go top 8 right now. And so I do think if you're looking for diversity of positions and talent in the system right now, getting that pitching in these trades and then potentially getting a blue chip position player in the top 10, I think makes a lot of sense. But I do think it's just like, okay, you just added Brandon Clark, who I think MLB.com has like 6 or 7 prospect. I don't know where Baseball America would have had Brandon Clark at, but it's a really interesting ad. Whatever you get back from Donovan, which should be whatever the top prospect is in that, unless the top player is a major league arm, should probably be the top prospect you get all offseason. Whatever you get from Contreras back, whatever, if you move Nato, probably not looking at anything, but I meant Nootbaar, if you move him, you get something. And then plus the 2026 MLB draft where you have that comp pick. You're going to have your 2nd round pick again this year. You're going to have a top 10 pick. Like, there's a lot of darts that Bloom's regime's going to get to throw at the board here. And this farm system looks like a back of the top 10 one right now. You're going to be graduating JJ. So that's a tough loss, but you'd be adding more. Like, I think it's probably a top 10 system by this time next year too, maybe even a top 5. Really interesting stuff right now. So we'll see what happens. But any other lasting thoughts? I mean, obviously if there's something big that happens next few days, especially on the Donovan front, we'll be going live. Obviously we'll be back midweek too to talk about how the winter meetings went, but any other things to look at or watch, whether it's Cardinals or just big picture from the winter meetings?
I don't know. It's just going to be a weird winter meetings as a Cardinals fan, because you might see like 4 different trades go down. I mean, it's totally possible that the Cardinals get aggressive and fire sale, and that's just going to be really strange. We've sort of seen like half fire sales at deadlines now, especially like 2023, but nothing.
But they weren't controllable assets, right? Like they were. Here, let me do a quick rundown. Just give me your guys' quick predictions on where you think they go. Kyle Tucker. I'll say Toronto.
Oh, man, the Dodgers have talked about.
No, they're not signing anyone. That's what it just came out. They're not signing anybody.
It would have been insane.
Payroll.
Yeah, good for them.
Yeah, they just brought Katie Woo, so they have to cut payroll to afford it. So.
I think Toronto makes a lot of sense then, because I think I had the Dodgers pegged for like a long time after they said 2 years ago that they were interested in pursuing Kyle Tucker eventually.
Yeah.
I mean,
actually, I'll flip. I'm gonna say the Mets. I'm gonna say the Mets are to come in and do something wild.
Why? After acquiring Simeon and that money,
I mean, they moved an outfielder.
Do the Giants make sense for Kyle Tucker? Maybe.
Oh, 1,000%.
I'll go the Giants. Actually, they've been spurned by outfielders before. Arson Judge was almost a Giant. Give me the Giants and Kyle Tucker. Give me the Giants and Kyle Turkey. Kyle Turkey is a Giant. You heard it here first.
It's like Zach Gallen.
Kyle Turkey.
Yeah.
That's great. Andrew, where are you going with Kyle Tucker?
Probably Blue Jays. I like the Blue Jays. Yeah. I feel bad. I feel bad for the Blue Jays.
Oh my gosh.
All right, real quick. We'll go. I want to round through a couple more. Kyle Schwarber. I'll say he goes back to Philly.
Ooh. I want to say the Mets. I think it'd be really funny and fun. So I'll go with the Mets. I think it makes some sense to me.
He goes to the Reds. I've been hearing that.
Ooh. Yeah, I can see that.
Great American.
Pete Alonso.
The Cubs.
Ooh.
I think it makes a lot of sense, but I don't want to see him there. You know what? Give me Pete Alonso to the Reds. That would be more fun than Castellanos.
I'll say
hate on Pete Alonso for the next few years.
Yeah, Pistol Pete. I'll say to the Boston. Okay. And then how about who was it? Not Bogut. Do you think guys Tarek Skubal gets traded? And if so, where? I'm gonna also say Mets. I think Mets go ham.
Why would they? That would be so dumb.
Who's going back?
Who would they trade him?
And more.
The Mets have stuff they can.
No,
trade.
why would the Tigers trade?
Because they should. They need to trade. The Tigers should trade Tariq Skubal, absolutely.
If they're not going to resign him, you should trade him.
They have to trade him.
But
They're going to get so much back.
I don't know.
You have to trade him. If they don't trade, there's no way they re-sign him now. He's a 2-time reigning Cy Young winner. He probably wants $550 million. And the Tigers can't afford to put that into one player whose arm might break every time he throws the baseball.
What do you guys think? Jim Bowden's trade stuff is always pretty terrible, but he did one where it was Tigers and Dodgers, and I was like, actually kind of thought it was interesting where he was a Terry Skubal for Glass now. I think like Zaire Hope, River Ryan, something like that. So they get an arm to replace Skubal, but then they also get multiple top prospects too. I think that'd be really helpful for Detroit to do something like that.
Yeah, I think the Mets deal makes so much sense though when you think about the fact that they could get Sproat, Tong, and more back, because that's what it's going to cost. Like Tarek Skubal, the only asset in the world that should be more expensive than Tarek Skubal right now is Paul Skeens. Skubal should cost you, it should hurt anybody and everybody. And I don't know if the Dodgers, like maybe DePaula, like Ferris too, they'd have to give up so much. I think the Tigers should be looking for a Soto level return. He's just that good. He's your 2-time.
I mean, with 1 year control, I don't think that big. But
if you know that if you trade him to a big market team, they're extending him.
I don't think you know that though, because he's just. I think they try, but he's a Scott Boras client. Like I think he probably hits free agency.
Yeah. I think a big market team doesn't trade for him unless they're extending him. I think that they got to learn from the Tucker thing in Chicago. Like it was stupid to give up those assets for Kyle Tucker and not be able to extend him, especially as a big market team that easily could have extended him and could afford it. You're Chicago, hello, third biggest market in the United States. But there's no way the Mets trade for Skubal and don't extend him. They have to. Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Who's the other big name I'm missing? Oh, Bregman. I'm actually going to say Bregman in the Cubs. Yeah.
Ooh, Tiger. He's a Tiger.
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that. I don't know.
Oh, how about Suarez too? Eugenio Suarez back to Seattle.
I'll say Detroit for him.
See, I don't know. Yeah, back to Seattle, probably. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that. I think that makes sense.
Run it back. All right, Paul Skeens to the Cardinals. You heard it here first. It's a prediction. So.
Yeah, it's going to cost Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman, and Tink Hence.
And we'll throw in Arenado too, just to make it fair. So
yeah, you can have your fan favorite while you wait for them. They have so much potential. You just have to give them runway.
On that note, appreciate the support on the podcast. As always, everyone like and subscribe. Helps the channel a ton, especially if you're new here. We've had a really great turnout today. It's been super fun. A lot of you in the chat, a lot of you watching live. Really appreciate it. If you're listening on audio, make sure to subscribe to the podcast, rate and review, help us out a lot as well. Share with your friends. Well, again, we'll be going live again this week, at least once, if not multiple times, due to news at the winter meetings. We'll be with you all off season on Dealing the Card. So as always, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks, Hein.
Thanks, Twitter.